Good morning. It's good to be with you on this Sunday morning. This is a day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. I want to talk to you for just a few minutes about a superhero, a superstar, one of the great people of the Bible. And this, who I'm talking about, you all going to know is Simon Peter. Simon Peter was with Jesus. He was one of the first disciples that was called. He was with him all through his ministry, and he saw the miraculous things that Jesus did and the healings and just everything that happened. Peter was there. He was one of the big three. Most of the time when Jesus had something special going on, he brought three of the disciples with him, and it was Peter, James, and John. So he was a superstar, superhero of Jesus' disciples. But like a lot of our superheroes and people that we look up, sometimes they fail. Peter had been with Jesus on that Last Supper, the night when Jesus told the disciples someone was going to betray him. And he was one of them that spoke up and said, "Not me, Jesus, not me. I'll be with you till death. I'll die for you." But we all know that that didn't happen. And as Jesus is, this is a picture I see in my mind. As Jesus is coming out of the courts, and Peter's out there denying him for the last time, and the rooster crows, Jesus looks at him and they make eye contact. And Peter feels so bad. He knows that he has failed. He knows that he has done something that he shouldn't have done. And even after Jesus was crucified, he wasn't there. Peter was hiding away away from the scene. And on that first Easter morning, him and John raced down to the tomb to see the empty tomb. But they didn't believe. They didn't understand. Even when Jesus showed himself to them in the upper room, this is just a picture again that I see. I see Peter kind of cowering down in the back. He can't look Jesus in the eye because he knows that he's sinned. He knows that he's let him down. And it goes on up through until Jesus shows himself that morning on the seashore as he's cooking breakfast for the disciples. And he tells them they had been fishing all night and hadn't caught anything. And he says, "Throw your nets over on the other side." And the nets were so full they almost broke. Peter swims to the shore as Jesus is cooking fish. And as the meal goes on, I can still see Peter being heavy-hearted and not wanting to look Jesus in the eye. He felt ashamed of what he had done. He felt so unworthy to be in the presence of Jesus, and he thought there was nothing he could do to make it right again. But after the meal was going on, Jesus pulled Peter over to the side, and hear these words from John 21, verses 15 through 19. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," he said, "you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my sheep, feed my lambs." Again Jesus said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." The third time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, "Do you love me?" He said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my sheep. Verily, truly, I tell you, when you were younger, you dressed yourselves and you went where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and someone else will dress you and lead you to where you do not want to go." Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. Then he said to him, "Follow me." Jesus reinstates Peter. He brings him back into the fold. He forgives him, even though Peter knew there was nothing he could do to right the wrong that he had done. He had let Jesus down in the most vulnerable time. He had denied even knowing him. And this is one of the superstars, the superheroes of the disciples that did this. But Jesus earlier on had told Peter, "Upon this rock I'm going to build my church." And we know that as time goes on, Peter becomes a superstar again. He he is the one that does the speaking on the day of Pentecost when thousands are brought to the church. Peter went from the lowest point in his life where he felt like there was nothing he could do to gain Jesus' love again, to answering the call and being the disciple that Jesus wanted him to be. Sometimes we think there's things that we've done that we can't be forgiven for. We think that there's things that we need to set right before we tell Jesus that we love him. Sometimes we think we're not worthy or have gifts that can be used, that Jesus can use, that God can use for the upbuilding of his kingdom. Tony Capello tells of a time when he was a counselor in a junior high camp. The junior high kids' concept of a good time is picking on people. We all know that. And on this particular case, there was a young man there at this camp who was suffering from cerebral palsy, and his name was Billy. And they picked on him terribly. Oh, how they picked on him. As he walked around the campus and the camp with his uncoordinated, stumbling, awkward walk, they would mimic him and they would imitate his movements. And Tony said that he watched them one day as Billy was asking for directions, and in his stammering, hard to speak tone of voice, he said, "Which way is the craft shop?" His mouth was contorting, and the boys mimicked that same awful stammer and said, "It's over there, Billy." And then they laughed at him, and Tony said he was so mad. He said his anger reached a higher pitch when on Thursday it was Billy's cabin's time to do the devotion for that day. And he said he wondered what would happen because the campers in his cabin had picked Billy to do the devotion. And he said he just knew that they were going to make fun of him, that they were just waiting on him to his stammering and his awkward walks. He knew that they were setting Billy up to make a fool out of him. But as Billy dragged his way to the front, you could hear giggles rolling over the crowd, and it took Billy almost 5 minutes to say 7 words. And those words were, "Jesus loves me, and I love Jesus." When he finished, there was dead silence there in the auditorium. Tony said he looked back over his shoulder and he saw these junior high boys who very seldom showed emotion, bawling like little babies. And a revival broke out because of Billy's short testimony. Tony said that as he traveled over the United States after this, that he'd find people, missionaries and preachers, and who'd say, "Do you remember me? I was saved at the junior high camp." And he said the counselors, they had tried to import baseball players, superstars. They had all of the big name people trying to persuade these young men to give their lives to Christ. And it was 7 words from a young Billy with cerebral palsy that took 5 minutes to say those 7 words. Jesus loves me, and I love Jesus. That broke the hearts of these kids and led them to Christ. Peter had been one of the superstars. He had been one of the disciples that had been set aside to do special things, and he became a great leader of the church. He was martyred for the church. As history tells us, Peter was crucified upside down because he said he didn't deserve to be crucified the same way that Christ was. But it wasn't until he found himself in one of the lowest points of his life, when he thought he was completely separated from Jesus, that Jesus brought him back into the fold. Jesus was telling Peter, I love you. I love you, Peter. Feed my sheep. Take care of my lambs. Follow me. So no matter where we find ourselves, no matter what situation we may be in, Jesus loves me and you and everyone else. And no matter what we've done or what position in life we find ourselves, he's there saying, I love you. Feed my sheep. Follow me. Amen.